Hello, welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. I'm just laying out some weed control membrane on this bed. This is my all new arid desert gravel bed, and in about 2 hours time the gravel is going to arrive. So I'm just laying out the weed fabric, and there's a couple of interesting points and one excellent hack which I wanted to share with you in this video. And then later on in the day the gravel will arrive, and I'll link to that video just above this one and at the end. Right, now there are several different types of weed control membrane, and I've got two of them to show you here. This is like a cloth membrane. It's like horticultural fleece. You can get it in all different kinds of grades, and it comes in rolls, and it's the sort of thing you see in your hardware store. It's about 1 meter wide strips usually. Now I would say that's slightly less durable, but quite effective nevertheless. And it's quite an easy thing to cut with a pair of scissors or haberdashery scissors, and try and avoid those scissors that have got a little notch in for cutting stems of plants. So that's the first type. And then there's this other type here, which is like a woven membrane, which is much more heavy duty and more durable, and you can buy it in specific sizes. So I've bought some very big pieces here. I think the piece I bought here was about 20 meters by 5 meters. And what's good about that is you don't have as much overlap, because the overlap is where weeds can get through. But the downside to this, in my opinion, is wherever you cut it, if you use scissors, it frays, and then you end up with this horrible stringy fibre all over your garden, and it blows in the wind and it gets everywhere. It's like when you used to open an audio tape and pull the tape out. And I can imagine it could do all kinds of damage to birds and wildlife if it got caught up in the feet. That's where my hack comes in. Let me show you. Now, they say there's nothing new under the sun, and this is not my original idea. This is based on an idea I originally saw on YouTube. It's a variation on a theme. So the YouTube hive mind has given me this idea, so I'm just sharing it forwards. The problem is, as I've already intimated, when you cut this weed fabric, it frays, and it frays awfully, and it doesn't stop fraying once it's started fraying. And before you know it, your garden can be covered in this horrible stringy stuff. That's if you cut it by scissors. Now, I saw someone using a very, very expensive heat knife to cut weed fabric, and it did a brilliant job. But that heat knife, when I looked at it on Amazon, was about £80. I've also seen someone using a blowtorch to do this, but I thought that was a bit fierce. Then I had the idea of just using a simple soldering iron. That cost me £15, and I've used it time and time again, and it's really, really effective. Now, clearly, you've got to be careful. It's very, very hot, so wear gloves. And also do it outdoors, just in case this gives off any fumes. You don't want to be breathing them in. It's common sense, but this will save you a lot of pain in the garden. And the reason it's brilliant is because when you cut your weed fabric using this, it seals it. Let me just bring the camera in close and give you a quick demonstration. So essentially, I've just lifted the weed fabric up, and I'm slowly moving along it with this hot soldering iron. I'm moving the soldering iron away from me. The smoke is blowing in that direction, away from my lungs. And as I do that, as you can see, in a matter of seconds, it's cutting the weed fabric, but at the same time, cauterizing it like a surgeon. It's sealing this end, so it's much less likely to fray. So it's a brilliant idea. Right, that's my hack for cutting weed fabric. Let's get back to a wide shot where I can show you a bit more about weed fabric. It's not rocket science putting weed fabric down. Obviously, when you measure your plot, allow for a little bit of waste, build in some tolerance. So buy a piece that's bigger, and if you're going to overlap it, make sure you give a good overlap to reduce the chance of weeds coming through. Now, a lot of people use pegs or strong wire to pin this down, because mine is going under 4 inches of gravel, I'm not going to do either of those, but I have chosen to do this on a slightly less windy day, and I'm going to weigh it down with bricks while I'm working with it. When the gravel goes down on top of that, I'll be able to pull the bricks out. Right, so I need to unfold it and cut it. Now, when it comes to cutting round existing plants like this one here, it really is a question of trial and error, but the way I found to do it is make sure that you push that into the base where it's going to touch the plant, and then go through from inside and then cut away from the trunk, and then as you see there, that will then form a cut in this weed fabric coming towards me actually on this occasion. And that will then, I shall just continue to do it, and talking and concentrating on this is no easy feat, but I shall continue. And I'm bringing that towards me, cutting it as I go. And as it's doing that, it's welding, sealing, so that the fraying is not going to be a problem. And don't worry, we'll get there in a moment and you'll see how I then unfold this around the base of this trachycarpus. That's now cut. I'll just place that to one side where it's out of danger. And now it's a question of unfolding it. Inevitably, there might well be a little bit of a gap, so if you've got any spare at the end of the day, you can do a belt and braces and cover that over twice. Now, I've got a friend on YouTube. His channel is Great Northern Exotic Gardening, and he specialises in arid plants. Now, whereas he's a plants person, I'm more of a project person, so I'm into projects and I have to learn about plants, and he's been great giving me advice about arid type plants, so do check out his channel. I'll link to it below. But why am I mentioning him? Well, I did have a conversation with him about whether I would use the weed fabric in this gravel bed. He has chosen not to. It's optional. I've chosen to use it because there's already a load of seeds, weed seeds down here, and inevitably those will grow up through the gravel, and I don't want to spend my life weeding. I have got the option of planting through. So what I can do, if I decide I want to plant a plant through this after the gravel's gone down, I can part the gravel, and then I can use my soldering iron to cut across, peel back the weed fabric, then plant into it. The point is though, whenever you're planting a plant like this, the plant should be planted so that it's not in an indentation. You want the crown of the plant to be protruding or proud so that it drains. Now, these plants are hardy in the UK, but they're not hardy if they get wet. So you want to avoid these getting wet. So plant them so that the crown of the plant is protruding from the soil surface, and then mound the gravel up to them. I will then have to put something over the top of this to protect it from getting wet in the winter time. That is going to be planted through the gravel, through the weed fabric. So there we go, the weed fabric is now in place. The gravel is about to arrive and my plants are waiting in the wings. I will drop a link to the soldering iron and the weed fabric and some weed fabric pegs in the description box below this video. And I will link to the video about the gravel arriving at the end of this one, and again in the description box below. I'm hoping they're going to crane it in and lower it down, and if they'll let me, I'm going to slice the bottom of the bag and watch it fall into place on this weed fabric. I'll see you soon for some more arid bed adventures. Bye for now.